Well, welcome to our college planning seminar on planning ahead. I'm your host, Brennan Barnard, and you're probably wondering what exactly we're planning ahead for. And there is, hopefully you're planning ahead for some fun this summer. And let's start there. So if you're just joining us, go in the chat and share where you're coming from, where you're zooming in from, and also what you're looking forward to most this summer. So let us know also if you're a student, if you're a parent, a counselor, just so we have a sense for who's in the room. And we're also going to be using the Q&A, so feel free to go in there and add your questions as we go. But we really are looking at planning ahead for the summer and for the fall and getting ahead of all the things that are to come. And here to walk us through this is my good friend Candice Mackey, who is a college counselor at LA Unified School District. Welcome, Candice.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Good to see you, Brennan, and good to have others of you here to join us.
Yes, and Candice is a frequent guest on CGN and one of our favorites. So it's great to have you back. And I know you're looking forward to summer, and as am I. And it's for some people, it's already summer. Some schools in Georgia and things like that are already out on summer break. And I know I've talked to some folks who are having graduation next week, and so it's moving. We're getting close. And if you're just joining us, feel free to put your Q&A in the Q&A box there, your questions in the Q&A box. And we want to talk tonight about recommendations, about summer visits to colleges, and anything else that's on your mind. So everything's fair game. So feel free to put those questions in there. And Candice, I just want to start while people are logging in and getting on and sharing their thoughts. What's your thought on kind of head start on the fall? What should people be doing over the summer to reduce pressure in the fall?
Yeah, so I mean, it's an exciting time right now. We are, we're still in spring, but as you mentioned, we are some of us have closed out the school year, and others we are, approaching that point. So summer really allows us it's a new season that's upon us, and a time to sort of kind of reset in a sense, but also I think use that time to try to be productive. To get some rest, to have some leisure time, to do the things that interest you and that you enjoy. And also thinking about how to manage, especially for those of you who are either rising seniors, or if you've already completed the school year, you are technically a senior. As you're thinking about this upcoming school year and applying to college, just really thinking of sort of working smarter and not harder. So I am a really big fan for students to really, I would say, spend some time approaching and working on and really getting started on the college essay. Certainly, if you are thinking about applying to schools that require a college essay, and certainly some schools who even have supplemental essays, they'll have more than one essay that pertains to their school. Summer is a great time to really start, I would say, focusing in and really, setting some time aside to get started on that piece that is really quite important on the college application. That's my first tidbit.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll get to more. I mean, that I can't emphasize enough how important that rest piece is. Junior year can be a busy year, and so I think it's really important for students not to feel like they need to overschedule their summer as well, right? Colleges are not expecting students to do just to be doers and do things all summer. They are taking time off, and college admissions officers, to do fun things, and you should too, and feel able to come back to the school year really rejuvenated. I also think it's easy to look at the summer and look and say, oh, I have all of June, all July, and all August. And that seems like just, the world of time, right? And then all of a sudden, August, 10th comes and you haven't done anything, right? And so I think really scheduling out some of that time, like planning for fun, but also, put together a spreadsheet or some kind of calendar for yourself of what you hope to get done over the summer, right? Like, what are a couple goals? Like for my students at Con Lab School, I asked them all to come back in the fall with two drafts of two different essays, right? And so so that's one goal that they need to have done, right? They need to have two drafts. And so for, like you're saying, for essay writing, students should plan that in, right? And not wait till the last minute and say, okay, now I got to do this, but kind of work on it over time. And I also think you brought up the point of multiple supplements and things like that, multiple essays for different colleges. It's a great time over the summer to, like I said, put together a spreadsheet of kind of what the requirements are at each school, right? So as you start to build your college list, put a list together of each school, their due date, their requirements, and how many essays they have, maybe what the essay topics are, right? So you can just keep it organized. Did you have something you were going to add something?
No, I just was saying, I think, you're spot on. And that just, I think, really looking at time management and organization, that is going to be your friend and really making room for in senior year, to, making this process just more manageable. You feel more confident and knowing that you're working with like a timeline, but again, also seeing how you can be productive as well.
And what do you advise families? I see we have a family on here together, watching together, and I'm sure there are others. How can they best go into the summer planning for communication and keeping open lines going so that things don't get tense?
Yeah, so this is, again, there's when we're thinking about senior year and thinking about the college admissions process, what, when you're preparing for it, but also actually in the process of applying, it can be at times emotional, both for students and parents. And it at times may feel like there's a lot of tasks that need to be done. And also from students and families and parents and caregivers, there is communication that will happen. And sometimes what I have just sort of, I think, learned really from like listening to lots of different students and families from all sorts of backgrounds is that what seems to be sort of helpful is if you kind of actually have some boundaries around those conversations and that they're not just taking up every bit of sort of your interactions. I think if there is boundaries where, for some families or for some people, they find like, what, we are just going to designate certain days or a day out during the week where we just, or on the weekend where we talk about, things that are related to college, right? And then even with that, kind of have sort of like, a time that's capped with that as well, because again, there's a lot of communication. There's a lot of it can be emotional. It can be a little stressful. And it is kind of, it's not in the grand scheme of things, it's not a long period, but it can feel kind of long when you're really thinking about, now all the way through, first semester of senior year and even part of going into second semester senior year. So I think just really having sort of boundaries around those conversations can be helpful.
Yep.
And I think that should be set between both student and the parents or caregiver.
Yeah, totally agreed. And I would say even just kind of from the start, having an initial meeting as you head into summer about college and setting expectations for the summer as a family. I think that's really important. So what is going to happen over the summer? Where are we going to be on August 30th, right? and make a list of the things that need to get done, and just be on the same page about who's doing what and how it's going to get done and when it's going to get done, so that it's not a constant kind of undercurrent, right? Like you're saying, and maybe that's setting a number of different meetings over the summer at intervals, like, okay, we're going to meet on the third Thursday of each month, or we're going to meet every other week, or whatever it is. But setting those expectations, I think, is really important. And also about money, right? And we've talked about this a lot before, but you know, what the expectations for maybe a summer job or things like that are going to be, and is part of that money that's made over the summer going to be set aside for college, and what are the expectations for students in paying for college, or doing some scholarship searches over the summer to help kind of pay for college, that kind of thing. Let's before we get too far into the summer, let's stay on campus for a second, and I'll just pause to say, if you have any questions for Candice or for me or for both of us, feel free to throw them in the Q&A, and we'll get to them. And it could be about planning ahead, could be about anything admission related. So how about letters recommendation, Candice? What do you tell your students in terms of who to ask for a letter, when to ask, how to do it?
Yeah, so letter recommendations, that's, just like how we were talking about college essays, letter recommendations are another just important piece of the application process. This is a time where you're having others, they have the opportunity to speak about you. And the goal of, obviously, is that you would want others who could speak positively about you. And, really, this is the time to really think about, I would say, who would I want to write on my behalf or to speak on my behalf, me as a student, the type of student that I am in class, how I've performed. Also, thinking about, those teachers who really know me well. Maybe I have small conversation with them where we talk about the things that are in class, but there are other just really engaging conversations that we have as well. And so I would say, for many colleges, or number one, first thing, you're going to want to, see or make sure that you understand what are the requirements from the colleges that you would be applying to, who require letter recommendations. Ideally, colleges are wanting to hear from more recent teachers. So your, teachers in 11th grade or even 12th grade, those are more recent experiences that teacher or that students have had. But in addition to that, they're also really sort of looking at those teachers, those core academic teachers. So it could be a math teacher, English, or modern language, science, social studies, any of those teachers. And typically coming from those core subjects, oftentimes colleges are interested to hear from those. But in addition to, again, really understanding what are the requirements, I think it's just really good for students to think deeply, actually, about who they want to speak on their behalf. It doesn't always have to be that teacher where you've had the highest grade in the class. I mean, if you have a great grade, that's great, but it should go a little bit deeper, if it's a teacher who could kind of validate your interests in a particular subject.
Yeah, well, and oftentimes, I mean, what you say is really important, because oftentimes even the teacher in a course that you struggled and maybe didn't get a high grade sometimes they can write a recommendation that really validates what the work you did in that course, even if you didn't get a good grade, or maybe how you faced that struggle, even if it didn't, the outcome didn't end up well. So I think that's totally on the table, right? And also what you say about requirements, I think, is really important, because some schools do have very specific requirements, right? So some of the military schools and things like that require a math recommendation, or some schools ask for a teacher who's had you in a writing intensive course, like a humanities course. So just being really clear about where you're applying and what their requirements are, and knowing your audience. If you're applying to a school for engineering, you'll probably want somebody in the science or math, right? So thinking about those things, I think, is really important. And there's a question here about Says, I've asked 2 teachers for a letter of recommendation. One teacher agreed, but the other one hasn't gotten back to my email, asking to meet at some point. I already sent a separate email. She hasn't replied. What should I do now? Should I find a different teacher or find her in person? I I'll take this one, and you can agree or disagree with me. I always tell my students that they should, when they ask for a recommendation, it should be in person. The first ask should be face to face rather than an email, because I think it's just a common courtesy to go up to the teacher and say, would you be willing to write for me? And maybe explain why you are asking, but then follow up in an email. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you, Brennan, and that I highly recommend that students approach their teacher in person. And it can be a little intimidating, understandably so. But you know what? Um, making that request in person goes such a long way. And even if it's done in person and the teacher is not able to write for you for whatever reason, it is always good, I think, to have a backup. So I say identify at least 2 to 3 teachers, because anything could happen, right? Where one of the teachers, something, they're not able to write for you. So you should definitely have 2 to 3 in mind. And just as in the way you would ask in person, I am a really big fan, and I encourage students to also send a thank you note to anyone who writes your letter of recommendation, whether it's a teacher or even a counselor, or may even be your coach, or someone that serves as an advisor. It could be like a non-teacher in some cases. Anyone who takes the time and is willing to write on your behalf, and it's really kind of doing you a favor, then I think just showing them common courtesy and gratitude with a thank you note,
Yeah.
is just it goes a long ways, and something that I would just highly encourage students to do.
Yeah, that's a great point. And so there's a question here: the recommendations letter will be sent by the teachers. Where do they need to send it? And that's a great question. And so each high school will have different processes, right? Some schools use systems like Score or Naviance or My Learning. So they're platforms that help manage the college process. And so a lot of times teachers will upload them directly into those programs. Other schools have teachers upload them directly into the Common App if a student's using the Common App. So that what will happen is the student will enter the teacher's name and email address into the Common App, and that teacher will get an invite from the Common App to upload their recommendation. But be very clear about what your school, before you do anything, be clear about what your school's processes are, because some schools ask students not to invite teachers through the Common App. Usually that information can be found directly from your counselor or on the guidance website, that kind of thing. I know at my school, I'm going to be meeting with all my students to kind of talk them through the step-by-step, because, like I said, I asked them to have a face-to-face conversation and then follow up with an email, and then they actually get an invite through Score, which is what we use. The teacher gets an invite after the student puts their name in there. And some schools also, and some teachers also ask students to fill out specific forms for them. So some teachers have forms that say, why are you asking me to write you a recommendation? What are some things that, did in my class that you're proud of? That kind of thing, to help them write the recommendation. So it depends on at every school, it's different. And some colleges, again, back to the requirements, some colleges will not allow you to submit more than one teacher recommendation. And so just need to be aware of that. So if there are do you have any other thoughts on recommendations before we move on? Or if other people have questions, feel free to put them in there. But anything we're missing, Candice?
Yeah, no, I just, as you were mentioning, like, each school typically has a policy, meaning like high school, on how they how they would like for you to approach either, there's teachers, staff, counselors with a letter of recommendation. if it has to be done or given a certain time frame, because your letter isn't the only letter oftentimes that counselors and teachers are writing. They're writing other letters as well for students. So oftentimes there are what's called a brag sheet, or questionnaire, that they ask students to fill out about themselves to kind of, it's really helpful for counselors and teachers to know a little bit more about students. And to, I think, really help with writing a really in-depth, just rich, personalized letter.
Yeah.
And that it's not just sounding like this, that you could be writing about any student. So just really ensuring you're following your school's policy and understanding and knowing if there's a policy and if they're using certain platforms. But also, I think, following the policy of the college as well, because if they say they only allow up to 2 letter recommendations, then that's what you would send them. Don't send them 3. It's not going to be a good look if you're not following the directions or instructions, of what colleges expect. So
Yeah, that's a great point. And
yeah.
and I would say more generally, just kind of the last thing on recommendations is that when you're thinking about you're looking at your application, right, as a story, right, and all the different voices that are coming through in that story. And so as you think about who's going to write for you, think about what hasn't, like what part of you hasn't been represented, right? There's going to be your voice in that application and the essay, and your counselor's voice. Your counselor will talk about some of your extracurricular involvement and things like that. But the teachers are really getting you as a student and who you are in a classroom setting, and so consider the different voices you want to have shine through in your application. Can we talk a little bit about campus visits over the summer? What can be gained by visiting colleges in the summer when classes aren't in session? Do you advise it? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I see visiting campuses, over summer. While I understand it's not exactly the same as what a campus may would look like during the school year, um, still having that opportunity to visit during summer, I really equate it to really, just having any opportunity to visit a college campus is like, buying an outfit or a pair of shoes or a pair of pants online. It's in your cart. But actually going to visit a college, you have a chance to like try it on in person, right?
Mm.
So there's nothing like being able to, I think, step foot on a college campus and just kind of try it on. That's really what it is, and really get an idea, get somewhat of an idea, somewhat of a feel of the campus. Yes, you may not, again, be able to get, try every sample that's being offered, but again, to be able to have that, sort of face-to-face experience, walk on campus. Maybe you run into a student and you're able to have a candid conversation with the student on campus and ask them some questions about, just their experience. And, still being able to see sort of key points on campus. I think it still can be really valuable for students as you all are, exploring and gathering information and really looking at this as a very like intimate and personalized process. This is about you. It's about you. It's for you. And it should be where you have every opportunity to touch and feel and see it, beyond,
Yeah.
hearing from other people or seeing it, virtually.
Yeah, and the reality is that there's often I mean, they have tour guides that are paid to be there over the summer, and so there are students there, and a lot of times there's summer programs. Some have summer semesters, so there's students around, and oftentimes it's not that different than going to a college on a Saturday morning during the year, right? When everybody's asleep and there's not much going on anyway. And also, I've heard back from students that a lot of times when they visit during the summer, they might stop by the department, the academic discipline where they're interested in studying. And a lot of times there's faculty there doing research over the summer, and they're more accessible, right? Like it's a little more relaxed. They have time. They're not distracted, and they might be able to have conversations. So they can be really useful times to take advantage of. So I agree with you. Not surprisingly, I pretty much always agree with you. So and what about interviews? Do you recommend to your students when they go to campus to do interviews if they're offered?
Yes, I'm a fan. Another, I'm a fan of a lot of things, but I think any opportunity where students are able to demonstrate themselves in a way, again, whether we've spent a lot of time or just talking about college essays, a lot of recommendations, right? These are the things that are voices that are coming through. So I really see interviews as being another opportunity for you as students, as people, right? The humanistic part of this process, to have a conversation with other folks who are part of the institution that you want to be a part of. And so I think, certainly there's preparation that should be involved when you are looking to do college interviews. But if you have an opportunity to do so during this process, I am definitely a fan for it. Or a fan of it. And I think that it's just again, another great opportunity for you to be able to sort of showcase who you are, but also even network throughout this experience and just part of the college application process. So.
Yeah, and I would say don't just do them when you go visit. Don't go back again. Don't do a first run and then go back. If they offer them, just do them when you go. Don't try to call the list and then go back and visit or go back and interview. And so we are running out of time here. And I'm gonna add my one tip for the summer, and then I'm gonna turn it to you to add your kind of one parting tip for your hope for folks over the summer. And mine is just that I hope that students will take the time over the summer to talk to more students who have been through this experience, right? Not necessarily talk to their peers who are going through the experience right now. Not talk to other rising seniors who might be stressed out and might be kind of feeling anxious about this process, but talk to students who are just graduating high school or maybe are getting back from their first or second year in college, and talk to them about the experiences they've had there, what they would recommend you do as you think about applying for college. And I think what you'll hear is that they wish they had started earlier, right? That they had done more of the summer to prepare for for their college application. The Common App goes live on August 1st, as does the Coalition for College through SCORE. And so there's time to start working on things in August, and you will be in such a better place if you don't wait until the school year starts to be writing essays and starting to fill out your application. All right, that's my piece. What do you got?
Oh man, yeah, Brennan, like you said it all.
Oh.
So I guess just to add on to it, I'm kind of like prepare while also repair. And what I mean by that is, if there's anything for those of you, if you have to make up any courses, or if you want to give something else a try that you have not yet done, or if you just need a little bit more rest, really look to see ways that you can prepare, but also repairing and really finding, in what ways can you take care of yourself as well. So
that is just a lovely way to end the evening. And as always, I so appreciate your wisdom and your time in joining us. And thanks for all you do for students and families. And have a wonderful summer. And thank you all for joining us. This is our last college planning seminar for the spring. We will be back in the fall in full force. So thanks for joining us, and have a great night, and we'll see you soon.
thank you. Have a great summer, everyone. Thank you.